news recently that kind of relates, not money wise, but relationship wise. I don't know if you guys saw. It wasn't a big thing. It was more of a small thing, but there was a little boy. I don't know, remember exactly the state he lived in. It might have been Florida. And I guess he got arrested recently for shooting in some sort of store or laundromat or something like that. And and his mother was interviewed on the news, and it went pretty viral because in her news media interview, she completely blamed the absence of his father. She said, that this thing kind of happened and only happened because his father should have been there more in his life, and that absent kind of contributed to that. And while I thought that was a little extreme, looking at the comments and what other people, a lot of people agreed flat out. Like there's a lot of people who was like, yeah, straight up, like if men were more present in these kids' lives, then they wouldn't be compelled to do these crazy things. I still think that's a little extreme, but let's start with the guys first on this one, and then we're gonna talk about another topic kind of related to that. But starting with Don, what do you think? Do you think that
that's just very
this
extreme.
segue was crazy.
I like that segue though.
I was not expecting this at all. I'm like, okay, yeah, love, scenario, finances. So a whole lot of gang shit happened, right? What?
I told you it's gonna be all over the place. So we're gonna circle back to the money stuff too, but I'm gonna keep it on y'all toes. So go ahead.
Waited to smoke because I was not prepared.
I think that's very extreme, man. Like, the absent dad situation. Although, like, yes, I believe children need their fathers. And fathers are a big deal. I believe children need both their parents, not just fathers. You know what I'm saying? I don't think just because an absent father that a child's gonna go and do these crazy things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't.
How many people in here got their daddies right now in this chat? Did we shoot anybody?
Exactly. Yeah.
I know my father.
Okay, that's me.
No, I mean, but that's the thing. I feel like we all adults, and we all know some people. That was a situation. You might know your father. You weren't raised by him or whatever.
That's what I was. That's what I was gonna bring up. I was gonna bring that up because y'all know my situation. Like my dad, he lives across the country. I didn't necessarily grow up with him. You know what I mean?
You knew him.
Yeah, I knew him. You know what I'm saying? I won't say he's absent, but he wasn't there around me 24/7, right? Exactly. And in no way did I ever think about doing anything crazy like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's extreme to say because of absent father, a child's gonna go out and do some crazy stuff like that. It's just OD.
OD.
Clay, what do you think? You think?
Clay.
Do you think?
I mean,
let me ask. Wait, hold on. Let me ask you this though.
The statement is not wrong. You feel me? The statement itself is not wrong, but you cannot solely blame it on that, if that makes sense.
Okay, and let me say this, right? So a lot of people in the comments from what I was saying that they was like, all right, you can't blame just the father. But then there was a lot of women that were saying that there are very specific things a mother can teach a son. And then there's very specific things that there has to be that father figure to not, to give you that right or wrong or tell you like, don't do that. Some people didn't agree. Some people did not agree with that. But it was a lot of what people did. Basically saying like, if you don't have a dad in your life, who's supposed to tell you not to pick up a gun or who's supposed to tell you? So what do you think about that? Do you think there should be specifics on each side?
Well, I mean, not that there has to be specifics, but there are certain specific things. Like, because even I could say firsthand, like, while my mother taught me how to be patient and how to love, so to speak, my father taught me how to fix my car. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
how to do certain things that my mom can't teach me. You know what I'm saying? And it's not to say that a woman can't teach their son how to fix a car, because there are plenty of women who are mechanics. But I'm just saying, like, those are certain things that, there's always going to be certain things that a kid is going to be missing if one is gone, whether it be the mother not there or the father not there. You know what I mean? But like I said, you can't solely blame the father not being there, because not only is it to blame the father not being there, you could also even blame the mother for not making sure that there was some type of male, role model in their life. You know what I'm saying? Whether that be through family or through some sort of, nonprofit organization, community centers, like there's plenty of options to find that if you know your kid needs it. And yeah, it's just all of that. You know what I'm saying? Because like I've always said this, smart parents know that it takes a village to raise a kid.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't do it just you and them, and that's why like it pains me where can't really say too much about what I do for work, but it pains me when I see parents making a big deal when our program is not available to watch their kids, and it's like, what's up with your plan B? You should have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. Like you should always have a game plan. I've never been in a situation with my parents when I was growing up where they didn't know what they could do with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just
Right.
I feel like there's just.
But
a
like
lot
you said,
more go into that.
Like you said, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that was kind of this mom's main thing. She was always clearly very upset. Her son was arrested for attempted murder, but what she was basically trying to say is like, you don't put this on me.
Murder?
I mean, you shoot into a crowded store. That's attempted to some extent, right? Even if you didn't hit nobody.
The way, okay, I thought the nigga was just in there and like a gun went off or some like on some little kid, whatever.
He pointed and aimed inside of a store and like shot. I don't know what was the reason or if he was just being bad, whatever. But he definitely
pulled up,
shot inside. Yeah, like straight up. So, but okay. Before we get to the comments and to the ladies, so like I'm saying, the mother, what she was kind of saying is like, like you said, it takes a village to raise a child, and I'm raising this child by myself. So I cannot be solely responsible for everything this child does because he's supposed to have a father. He's supposed to have a whole nother family that he's excluded from because of the absence of his father. Real quick, we're going to go to the comments, and we're going to get to the ladies. Rachel says, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer had his dad, and he still ended up a serial killer. That's true. That's true.
That's true.
You can't, dad or not.
I call that absent parenting. They was there, but they wasn't there.
Right. So go ahead. All right. So Sunshine, what do you think about this? Go ahead. Let's get your opinion.
I blame the mama.
You you fully blame the mama? Yeah.
I blame the mama. The daddy wasn't there. That for whatever reasons, and yes, that is a contribution to his mental health and whatever why he decided to do that. Why is this child, like you said, not in programs? Why is this child not in therapy? Why is this child not in extracurricular activities? He got too much time on his hand. Like, where was the mother? You're the one raising him. How are you blaming somebody who's not raising the kid? You're raising him. It's her fault.
That is true. That's true. Zimar, what do you think?
Well, I was kind of going to say the same thing in the sense of whether the dad is present or not does not determine how the kid ends up in a way. Because I've seen, like you guys were mentioning, like I've seen dads who have been married to moms in the same home and the kid is still messed up. And a kid who was raised by just mom or just dad be the most polite, loving person in the world type thing. So it's like, I can't blame you. And when it says like a parent just gives birth to a child, that's really what it is. You cannot determine what a child's going to do, whether you raise them right or not, majority of the time, because they're going to do what they want to do. And they're influenced by the outside when you don't spend like about half the day with them, they doing something else and they're influenced by something else. So who do you blame for real?
That's true. Before we go to Jada, hold on. Reunion XL says exceptions to the rule doesn't change. I think you're trying to say change the rule. If you could elaborate a little bit on that, or what you
exceptions to the rule doesn't change the rule.
Exactly what you were talking about that. But Jada, go ahead. What do you think? You think same thing as Sunshine is tomorrow, or any? What's your opinion?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. The way I see it, thinking about it on a psychological level of just how it plays out and like the response to it happening as a mom.
Right.
I kind of see what she's saying in a sense of, this is a living, breathing thing that has evolved in what is now and today. Am I supposed to be responsible for every single decision that they make? If that's what it was, that wasn't conveyed properly, but at the same time, to immediately put blame on not only a tangible thing, but it's like, you don't even know what this nigga had. Like you sit here blaming something that's air, like just out and about, instead of, again, if you don't want to take accountability for the fact that your son just shot something up for whatever reason, that's understandable, but at the same time, you immediately hit blame first. So as a parent,
Right.
thinking about outside of when the kid is playing with guns, like what other situations have happened to where the mom was immediately thinking of blame on something or someone else. So it's like
Yeah.
That's
on a
what I feel like she's
psychological,
deflecting.
yeah, on a psychological level, like,
Yeah.
are you
Definitely.
enabling? Because that's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And in that
So
situation, you could tell she probably every time the child does something or something comes up, she probably says, "Well, if your daddy was here, he could have done this, or he could have
That's
taught you
what
Yeah,
I
that."
said.
yeah.
Word.
Just
It's probably
it's
Those,
like
a
those be
sent to
the
that
sure
ones.
child's mind.
sign.
Or
Those be the
something
ones.
she
Right.
can't do, or something like that.
Right.
And she'd be like, "Well, if your daddy was
Right.
in your life, he would have taught you," type thing.
I
It's a sure
I
sign
Exactly.
of
do
how his
Exactly.
household is and
I
why the kid's
Mm-hmm.
probably so messed up. Just
Shooting up.
from her
Right.
doing it.
Man,
I do want to add,
Yeah.
I do want to say that I mean, although like she was currently raising the child, I wouldn't fully put the blame on her. More so if I was to say something, like I'll put the blame on
Right.
any like role model per se in this person's life. So in this
Or lack
child's
of.
life, or lack of,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like who was this child hanging around? You know what I'm saying? Like Clay
Right.
said earlier, he got family, he got cousins. You know what I'm saying? Brothers, like
Right.
you know what I mean? Because if there's a lack of a father role, an absent father, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's some sort of male role model, and you know what I'm saying? The male role model could be somebody 2-3 years older. You don't have to be somebody like extremely older. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
Right,
so
right, right,
so you know
right.
what I mean?
And
So
sometimes,
go ahead.
that's not the case. But real quick, sorry, let's just go to the comments. So reunion, he did elaborate. He said exceptions to the rule doesn't change the rule. Having both parents is definitely more valuable. Now that too, I'm gonna say is kind of where I'm at with it a little bit, right? Because
Word.
while I do agree with the ladies that if you're the sole parent, it is your sole responsibility to make sure that child is grows up to not shoot shit up. But there we as black people, as people of color, sometimes I think we ignore unfortunate statistics. Just like it's a fact that jails right now are more filled with minorities than they are white people, whatever you want to blame that, whatever. It is a statistic that minority males that are raised without a father figure do get in more trouble and tend to do more wrong than males that do. Go ahead, Jado.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
respectfully, it is easier for a minority to go to jail than it
That's okay, and
is.
that's what I'm saying. It is that is so that is so some people they might not agree with you on that, but I do. I
I
feel
do.
like it is based on a lot of things, based on how we as minorities were raised in the situations the privileges we aren't given. Sometimes we got to get into things that other
There's a
cultures don't
war
understand.
on black men.
Exactly. So, but again, that's a whole nother podcast that we can, understand. But
Don't get me
I mean, are
started.
you sure? Are you sure? Let's unpack
I
this for
mean,
a second because we've been swimming through some things, okay, with no
we
warning,
have, we have,
and
we
we
have.
here. So
We are. And again, that does kind of contribute to what we're talking about, honestly, as far as, black men in society being raised and what we end up doing with our lives. Again, I do have to kind of agree. If certain households that do have both parents do seem to have produced kids that are like, at least when they're kids, they're more mentally stable, because sometimes it does take until we get to like that teenage age or that even, 21, 22 before we could put certain things in a perspective and come to like be adults ourselves and not even care about what's going on with our parents or stuff like
Word.
that. So I would say as a young child, it is important or better if you do have both parents in your life, or that statistic. So
1000% for sure.
and then Garment where it says erase parents, how often does community take up for people who fall through the cracks? I understand that second. Okay, I go to saying, forget about parents. How often does community take up for people who fall through the cracks? Yeah, and again, I think some people have different definitions of falling through the cracks. It's easier for some of us to fall through the cracks than others, but I would
True.
agree that people who don't have a stable home, when you don't have that stability at home, you rely completely on the streets or whatever happens at school or in your environment outside of that home. Sometimes you don't even want to be at home if you got a certain environment at home that's not good for you.
That's a
So,
fact.
And those people, I think, is way easier for them to fall through the cracks because they
For
end
sure.
up getting involved with things they don't. I don't been in school. We've all been in school and seen kids that ain't even afraid to get in trouble because they don't have discipline at home. No one's gonna tell them, "Oh, don't," you know what I'm saying? Don't do that. So they don't care. They'll do whatever.
I think to that comment, I feel like there's a Jada. We can hear your bag very
I'm
loud.
sorry.
I feel like that comment kind of made me feel like process. Like I'm not gonna say we don't have a community, but there's so many sub communities, and then we arguing about what we should do that we can't even make the big community. So there's lots of room to fall through the cracks.
Yep.
Facts.
When you say, let me ask you this though. When you say you want to say that you don't want to say that we don't have a community, you mean like define community or what you're considering, like the black people in
Community,
general
like
or minorities? Like,
yeah, like we're talking about this child was a black child.
yeah.
So I'm talking specifically then about the black community, right? Because other minority communities do practice community by spending money with each other, by watching each other's kids, by looking out for, not saying that. That's why I said I didn't want to say that we don't, because we do, but not on the level of other communities.
That's true.
And do you have do you or anybody else now? What do you think that is? Like, what would be something you would say contributes to us that lack of community?
Everybody, the separationism, like everybody, even when it comes to the core, which is the family, we all leave each other and we go struggle on our own instead of working together. And I think that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you think that culture is more put like, which in my opinion, I do. I think, which I agree with what you're saying, but I think that culture is like pushed a lot more these days to the point I even think it's kind of looked at in a positive way. This kind of like, oh, you don't need nobody. You could do by yourself. Whether you're a man or a woman, you don't need another man or a woman. You know what I mean? And there's some positive in that. It does work out for us sometimes, but I also think there are a lot of negatives because, for better or for worse, the older generation above us, even above them, they did a lot better job of like staying together through thick and thin. I feel like our generation, we leave each other for like nothing. Yeah, but their worst were terrible. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like our generation, I feel we act like we're so tough and but we ain't nothing compared to them. Like even the women, I tell people all the time, screaming? What do you mean? Like
it's screaming trauma.
Screaming trauma.
It's screaming Sherlock.
It's screaming trauma.
It's Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, that too. A little bit of that is mixed in there too as well. But again, I feel like that's because, especially us that grew up, if you grew up with Caribbean parents, obviously there's a little bit more of that. We don't really believe in mental health and people being depressed. They're crazy. It's not really on
right.
On
but the
agenda.
Caribbean people your neighbor will whoop your behind. You know what I'm saying? There's the community. So I guess now I'm even focusing on more American, Black Americans.
Okay, I get what you saying.
Right? Because even in the Caribbean, Black Caribbean community, we can have that. If you see somebody's child misbehaving, you gonna handle it and tell their mama later.
That's true.
Right. And I've seen a lot of that lately too. Like I've seen a lot with more people our generation, whether they got Caribbean parents or not. They really do not feel comfortable with other people disciplining their children or even telling them how to or what they should do to discipline their kids. That was like Sunshine just said before. That was not the case. Like you had to go tell your mom somebody had to discipline you. She was going to discipline you on top of it, for even putting her in an embarrassing situation where someone else had to discipline you. That's not the case these days. So
exponential ass whoopings.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, I think, and it's definitely a lack of that community, because like, and that kind of goes to what Don was saying earlier too, like, and Clay, like, even if it wasn't his dad in his life, why wasn't there someone that was there to be like, yo, you can't be picking up guns or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I see sometimes having that one parent be cut off, that cuts off an entire other family, because it's very rare that I see like, someone not being cool with their dad, but they have a relationship with their dad's family. I don't really think I see that too often. So
word? No, I've seen it.
Me personally, not too much usually. And again, relationship, everyone has a different definition of that. I don't call a relationship if you've seen your dad 3 times your whole life and you don't really talk. I wouldn't say that's a relationship. But
Reunion Excel said if the household isn't right, blame really cannot reach the community or the music industry.
yeah. Okay, so we'll touch on that. But also, let's see. Leger
Was
said
that the
there's a
segue?
theme of it.
Are we leaving now?
No, not yet. Not, y'all will know when I segue. My segues are gonna be very, they're gonna be crazy. But
Okay.
so also Leger said there's a theme of intense individualism in this country as a whole. We lack empathy and grace for each other.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true
the
as
ego.
well.
Very true.
The ego is
Yeah.
a mother.
But
I've
it's the
always said
system
it's
that's
the
put in
ego.
place.
Huh?
Again, and what do you think? But what do you think creates that system? I think social media and us as
Oh,
well,
for
we
sure,
contribute to
because
that.
it's never. This is the thing. I'm just gonna relate back to our earlier conversations because I'm low key like, what is it, ADHD, whatever. But it's like it stems back from. It's just one of those things where it's like, if I, sorry, I just had a brain fart.
It's all good. It's all good.
I was
If
about
you
to say
remember what
some
she was
shit
gonna
and then
say,
my mind went
ADHD.
you was gonna say some deep shit. Like we was
She's
ready.
about to
You
get
was
in a
like,
bag,
I
boy.
was ready to preach.
I was ready.
She's about to start cooking.
Yeah, repeat that so
I was
I
about
can
to get
Oh,
hear.
Maya
goodness.
Angelou is hell up
but
in
if
here.
you remember, let us know. But going with what Reunion said, if the household isn't right, can't blame really cannot reach the community or the music industry. So yeah, that's another thing too. Obviously, the music is a big part of what gets blamed today. We all listen to rap music to some extent, I think, and that plays a part too. You know, whether you believe on blaming them or not is one thing. But as far as the household, though, again, some people, your definition of a right household, that could depend. Some people, you got some people that don't think two people of the same sex could raise a child. You got some people that don't think one mom could raise a child, one dad. Like the world is all over the place with what people
Look at
consider
Sunshine's face.
a right
I'm trying not to
household.
get canceled
Sunshine,
over here. I have a lot going on in my
I mean, don't say what you gotta say if you know what I mean. If you got something,
I'm gonna wait till you ask me a question. Because I will get myself canceled.
So let me ask you that: what is your definition, Sunshine, of a right
You want
household?
her
What
to
is
get
a
canceled?
what is what's a right household? Like, what do you do? What do you think a right household is?
A right household.
I'm sorry.
Because nature, I'm gonna say a right household starts with a man and a woman. Because if it didn't, then we would all cease to exist. So I'm gonna just start there with I believe that it should be a masculine and a feminine, a man and a woman that procreate and raise a child, and it starts with their relationship first.
Got you.
I think if they establish love, partnership, what they're going to sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? All these things that they have to be established first to me in a right household, because because really the way to teach a child is through example.
That's true.
So I feel like with just that alone, it takes a lot to raise a child, but I think two parents in a household with a healthy relationship is enough. Everything else, we can find resources. If we have community, we can build community, we can make community. But I think it starts with a husband and wife.
So, and just real quick, let me ask you this: what about that extreme situation where there isn't always a husband or traditional husband and wife? Like, do you think a one single parent completely without the other is capable of raising a child
I'm that one single parent.
positively? Okay,
I'm
so
that
then, all right,
person.
then.
And
Gotcha.
from experience, I can say no. I can do it, but I've had to reach on the outside. I've had to call on my aunties. I've had to call on my friends. I've had to put my kids in so many activities that have these male leadership roles to check them. So I can say, hey, they're acting up in school. And they're like, oh, you acting up? 10 laps, let's go. You know what I'm
Got
saying?
you.
Because even though they can't like whoop them or whatever, they still respect that person.
Right.
And they're a leader in their life. So I'm gonna say it can happen, yes. Is it the most ideal way, I think, to raise a child? No. I think you should still have a father in the home.
That's
or at least
fair.
a
That's
man
fair.
who's going to take that role.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, because I mean, I think to expect a single parent, either man or female, to completely do it by themselves is kind of ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. It does to an extent take a village to raise a child. Like if you're in a situation where you don't have the other person, you gotta reach out. And but one of the things I think is like, we're kids, we're adults now. I think when you're an adult, it's a lot easier for you to think about and appreciate the things your parents did for you or your one parent did for you or that they tried. So
Yeah.
even though that kid might not understand what's going on right now, I think as a parent, you got to think like, and I'm not a parent, so I don't want to speak from that point of view, but I would think like, okay, when this kid is an adult, they're going to understand like, yeah, mom was by herself, but every time she didn't just try by herself. She didn't just like, you know what I mean, just blame like this lady, everything around her for every wrong I did. She held me responsible and she made sure there's a male figure in my life that held me responsible for certain things. So, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying.
One thing I don't
Comment
do, just
wise,
because you
go ahead,
said
go
that
ahead.
about the lady, one thing I
Right,
don't do is let my children talk bad about their father. Um,
Yeah, that's,
they
right.
have their
There's some
feelings and
people,
I let them express themselves, but I still make them respect the fact that without him, they wouldn't be here.
right,
So I
right.
make them stand on that respect. I give them truth. I'm very transparent with my children.
Very.
Um, yeah, very. But
Very.
I do make them respect the fact that he at least helped create them. How they feel is still valid, but definitely I don't place blame. I don't expect anything from him. And I don't expect to be able to do what he should have been able to do in this situation.
Got you, got you. And before we segue out of that, though, I'm gonna ask one more question.